Good evening, everybody. How are we doing? Hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing okay. No, I'm actually doing pretty good, actually. It's been a very busy, very long weekend. As some of you might have seen on Facebook, I've been involved in a leadership conference for this weekend, which finished up today. So really good. Been a thoroughly enjoyable and very educational weekend. So challenged and stretched in my leadership skills, which is great. So that's what it's all about. So I hope everybody is doing well this very fine November the 4th, it's November the 5th here. Just turned November the 5th because we're back in Greenwich Mean Time as opposed to British summertime, which is I don't like it when the clocks go back, because it basically means, okay, great, so our days get shorter and our nights get longer, and the sun starts to go down kind of around about 3:30 in the afternoon here, and that's to do with just how far north we are. So, it starts to go dark about 3:30, and then by the time we get to 5 o'clock, it's near enough completely dark. So, and then of course the sun doesn't come up until nearly 7 a.m. So, nights are pretty long. So that's kind of things here. So I much prefer summertime and long days and short nights to winter and all of that. But hey, we are in November and we're getting to the business end of the year, which is exciting because it means two things. Number one, my daughter's birthday. She'll be 9 on November 19th. And then, of course, after that, it's Christmas. But it's only just November, so we're not really going to talk too much about Christmas. Although I do have some very cool things planned for Jonny Lipsham Studios for Christmas, and for Sunday Night Live we're going to do a whole bunch of crazy Christmas specials through the month of December, so that's going to be really cool. I may even do a very special Christmas Day broadcast. You never know your luck. We will see. We'll see what happens, what family time allows and all of that, so you never know what might happen. But yeah, we're going to do a whole bunch of crazy Christmas stuff for the month of December, and Jonny Gibe and I have got some stuff planned for HST broadcast for December for Songwriting Simplified, so those are going to be really cool. And the new year brings some exciting things as well, some exciting new developments, which I will talk about at some point, which Raina has kind of alluded to. Yes, the long-awaited VIP membership, which kind of has been put on hold for a while because of some major problems we're having with the servers that we were hosting it on, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't going well at all. I couldn't possibly launch the VIP to you guys and give you something that is rubbish. So or something that just doesn't work properly. So we're pretty much beginning to get back on track with that now. So hopefully in the new year, I know 6-7 months late, but hopefully in the new year we should be able to launch this puppy. So I'm excited by that. And wow, donations are coming in already. Good grief. So we've got Bobby Booth with a $5 donation, and Mike for a $10 donation, and Mike says, just because you're the best, which is very cool. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that. And we're only 6 minutes into the show. Crikey. I really appreciate your donations, guys. So yeah, VIP is definitely a thing. It always has been definitely a thing. It's been fraught with problems that I did not anticipate in the slightest. So I really do apologize, because I know there's a good number of you out there that are really interested in it. And I've got content waiting to go up on it. So, we've been playing the waiting game quite a lot, and toing and froing with the people that host it and all of that. And with my friend who is helping me build it. So it's been a bit back and forth, and we've had some stumbling blocks and that kind of stuff. But anyway, enough about the VIP, because fingers crossed that will be being launched in January, some point in January. I haven't got an exact date yet, but as soon as I have an exact date, I'll get that to you. And I'll even give you a guided tour of the VIP, the renewed VIP, because it's going to look a bit different. So from the little tour that I gave you earlier in the summertime, we've had to basically start again, which is annoying. But anyway, let's see. I was going to say something then, and it's completely escaped my memory what I was going to say. What was I going to say? Yeah, what we're going to talk about today is a while back, maybe I think September, I started talking about, wouldn't it be a cool idea if everybody released a brand new song, or it could be more than one song, doesn't have to just be one song, but released music to the world on the same day. So I picked an arbitrary date, which was December 10th. And I started calling it the December 10th Challenge. And it's basically the idea of writing, recording, mixing, mastering, and releasing a brand new song, or maybe more than one song. It's up to you guys. If you want to do more than one song, that's great. Go for it. Or an EP, or an album, whatever you want to do. And get that out on December 10th. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to be doing. I am going to be putting up a new single on December 10th, and I'm going to document the entire process of how I go about writing a song, how I go about arranging it and sorting out the instrumentation, and how I go about recording, and then the mixing and the mastering. So I'm going to document all of that in a series of videos, which will go up on my channel, and it's probably the first time actually that I've kind of shown anybody my songwriting process, because it is a little bit weird, but for me it works and has worked for, coming up on nearly 30 years. So it's pretty much set in stone now the way that I do it. Maybe I'm just kind of stuck in my ways, I don't know. But so that's the plan. I'm going to document the whole thing, and I'm obviously going to have to do quite a lot of editing, because I'm sure you don't want to, sit there, watch me kind of umming and ahhing over a line for half an hour. That's not really much fun. So I'm going to kind of edit it pretty well, so you get to see how I go about the process and how I struggle with lines sometimes. And some of the tools that I use, like various dictionaries, thesauruses, slang dictionaries, trying to find obscure words. I like doing that, and that kind of thing, as kind of like the story and the characters for my song develop and unfold. I like to put them in an amusing situation and see how they react and see how they respond to it. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, and hopefully that is going to be cool, and hopefully that's going to be helpful and educational for you guys to see how my whole process goes together. Kind of like how I come up with chord changes, how I come up with the groove and the vibe for the song, how I come up with the lyrics, and all of that, because it's an interesting process for me anyway, and I think it's maybe not necessarily the same as anybody else that I know of. So hopefully it will give you an insight into how I go about doing that, and maybe some of the things that I do will help you and your songwriting process and your arranging process, and kind of how I keep the listener engaged from the very first chord to the very last one, or the fade out, whatever it happens to be for this particular song. So it's going to be cool. I don't know what the song is going to be about. I don't know what characters are going to appear in it and what the story is going to be, or the style or the vibe or anything yet. I have some vague ideas already. Like, I think I'm going to kind of like go for a kind of maybe slow, mellow, kind of moody, kind of atmospheric kind of feel, I think, with maybe mallets on drums, something like that. And keep it nice and soft. Maybe mallets on drums and a little bit of brushes as well. which I may well just set my drums up just behind here and do it here, which would be awesome. And I'll capture it all with just this one mic. I might do drums that way. I may use some loops. I'm not really sure yet. Haven't quite decided. It depends on how well test recordings for drums go in this room, because I haven't recorded drums in here yet. And if they come out well, then maybe I'll actually go ahead and record the drums in here, but we'll have to see. So that's kind of what is going to go on. Raina says, sorry, I'm out for this challenge. Too much work on a radio play comedy. Oh, well, that's cool. Radio plays are cool. And comedy is cool. I've been involved in an improvised sitcom for a number of years, and we perform every week, and it's great fun. I've been doing it with the same bunch of guys every week for several years, and it's great fun. We never know how each episode is going to start. We never know how each episode is going to finish, other than that there is a start and there is a finish for the episodes. And it's hilarious fun. Unfortunately, you can't access it outside the UK, which is a bit disappointing. But it's good fun. I enjoy the acting. So that's cool, Rainer. I don't mind. Mike says brain fart. I have lots of those. I have those regularly. Your neighbors will love that. Live drums in an apartment. I have done it before. I have to do it in the daytime. If I'm going to record drums, I have to record it in the daytime, so that I'm not breaking any kind of nuisance laws or anything like that. So I have to be careful, and if I'm going to do drums in the daytime, I have to do it at very specific times, because our neighbor downstairs, she works shifts, so she sometimes works nights, and when she's on nights, obviously I can't record drums. So I'll have to work that out with her in consultation, because I think that's the way to do it. If you live with close-quartered neighbors, I think keeping them informed as to what's going on, I think, is the secret. If they know that I'm going to be recording drums on a particular day, or I'm going to be recording a full band in here on a particular day, then I don't think neighbors will mind if they have some kind of heads up about what the day is, what the time is. I'm pretty sure that, most neighbors are fine with it. I mean, I think pretty much everywhere I've lived, I've been able to play my saxophone, or I've been able to play my piano, or indeed I have been able to play my drums. Most places that I've lived, I've been able to play my drums. So, and certainly in my my teens, from sort of like 12 years old through to about 21, 22, I was playing maybe 7, 8, 9 hours a day in my bedroom. I played my drums 7, 8, 9 hours a day, and I never had a single complaint ever from any of my neighbors, which was great, because, I think they thought, hey, it's not just random banging, or, it's not a nuisance. I'm actually playing something constructive. So neighbors, I think, actually quite liked that. So they maybe got a little bit more unhappy with the saxophone practice, because at first, the sound you get out of a saxophone at first is not very pleasant. It sounds a little bit like a cow in labor to start with. And then over time, as your embouchure develops and your facial muscles around your mouth get stronger, and you're able to hold your embouchure for longer, for better, and get more control of the air going through the horn, you start to develop a nicer tone. And especially when you're practicing lots of long notes, you start to develop a nicer tone. And the neighbors get happier after a while, and now start playing tunes instead of just long notes. So Mike says, I tried that with my neighbors. They were not too thrilled with the idea. Now I have an E-kit. Yeah, well, you know what? I wish I had an E-kit back in those days. Back in the mid 1980s. That would have been awesome. Maybe from 1983, 82, 83, that would have been great to have one of those Simmons kits. I would have loved to have had one of those. But yeah, I didn't have access to those kind of things at all. However, when I was about 17, we moved to a cottage, And this cottage had like 3-foot thick granite walls, which were amazing at keeping sound in and not allowing sound to come in from the outside either. They were fantastic. So in that cottage we had a couple of outbuildings, and I set my drums up in one of these outbuildings. I kind of like decked it out a bit so that it was damp proof, and we dealt with a lot of the moisture and that kind of thing in that particular building. And then I set my drums up in there, and I had my record player in there, and that's how I practiced. I played along to Buddy Rich records a lot. My time check record I played along to so many times I wore the grooves out. And various Steely Dan records, Weather Report records, I played along to all of those kind of things in this outbuilding. And I could play 8-9 hours a day, and you wouldn't really hear very much. You'd hear maybe the kick drum a little bit, and if I was really laying into the cymbals, you could hear the cymbals come through a bit. But for the most part, you couldn't hear anything. So it was great for those couple of years when it was kind of like crunch time exams, and I was doing my grades. I was doing my grade 8 on drums, and that kind of stuff. I needed to do a lot of practice for the test pieces. So neighbors were actually really good because they didn't really hear what I was doing very much, which is great. Let's see. I've just been wittering along here and completely forgotten to check out who's here, other than to mention Mike and Bobby Booth, because they donated money. So I should see who else is here. Now, RJ Hagler, I knew was here because he was the first one to check in. And Rainer and Mike, obviously. Diego is here. He says, "Hola. Hola, Diego. ¿Cómo está?" Let's see, who else do we have? If I can scroll back down on my crappy little laptop. Lorenz is here. He says, "Hello, dear. Hello, mate. How are you? Good to see you." I think that's it. I think we've got a very small crowd tonight. Kyle is here. Kyle Jedruziak. Good to see you, mate. Welcome. I did send out an email, albeit I sent it out very late because I actually got in maybe about half an hour before showtime. So, and so it was a bit of a rush kind of going and setting up, and I had to throw food down my gullet and all of that and make sure that I was ready to start. So I kind of rushed an email out to my email list. If you're not on my email list, in the description below, you will find a link to that. Go get on it, and you'll not only receive emails when my Sunday Night Live goes out and when I do Songwriting Simplified with Jonny Guy, but also any videos that go out, you'll get email heads up about that, and articles that I post up. Some of which will be on my website, but some of which will be just exclusive to you guys on my email list. Plus, you also get my 5-part compression video series, and you also get the stems to Chanel, which you can mix to your heart's content, and you can use that in your portfolio to attract clients. I'm happy for you to do that, absolutely. So as you can hear, my voice is getting better. I've been singing in the church choir today, so I've actually had really good range today. I've been singing tenor with the upper tenor guys, and there are a couple of songs I had to double alto on with the girls because they weren't really quite sure of the alto parts, so I did that a little bit as well. So that really explored my upper register, and it's clearing up nicely. But at this time of night, I'm starting to go a little bit back down into the bass end. So yeah, Bobby Booth has got it, so that's cool. So that's the email list. Okay, that's the December 10th challenge. Get a song out to the world on December 10th. I aim to get my song out before close of business time, which would be sort of like 5:30 p.m. on December 10th. That's my plan. And I'm just going to put up one song, but if you guys want to do more than one song, if you want to do an EP or a full 8, 9, 10 song record, go for it and get that out on December 10th. It can be, you know, you can do covers, you can do originals, doesn't really matter. The whole point is to set a deadline. The whole point of this whole challenge was to set a deadline, and then that's what you shoot for being creative and getting music out to the world. So my intention, although I didn't do one last year, and I so far have not done one this year, but my intention is to do an EP, 4 or 5 song EP every year. Now, the last couple of years, I've not been able to do that for various reasons, but next year, 2019, I will have a new EP, which will come out in the springtime, is kind of what I'm aiming for. I've got some of those songs sketched out as well, and that's going to be very cool. I've got actually some cool ideas for those songs, for characters and storylines. They are going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to those. So that'll come out kind of in the middle of the springtime, is kind of what I'm aiming for. And that's pretty much it for Talking Point. What else is coming up this week? This week I've got some new videos coming out. I've got, as I say, I'm going to start documenting my December 10th challenge. And I've got some other mixing tips videos going to be going into mixing bass and then mixing guitars, and then kind of like dealing with vocals and kind of what I do to deal with vocals, particularly if the vocal recording is not that great. If it's not necessarily about the performance in this particular case, but it's about the quality of the recording isn't that great, and I'm going to show you what I do to kind of clean it up and make it sound nice and polished, and then sit it right in the mix. So there's about 4 or 5 videos that are going to be coming out over the course of the next week or two to get your teeth into. And then I've got a couple of other series planned as we lead up into Christmas. And as I say, I've got a whole bunch of Christmas orientated stuff for December, and then we'll be into January and VIP and all of that. So, yeah, it's going to be good. So, I'm ready for your questions, guys. Let's go into the question section. Now, unlike Jonny, I don't have any kind of exciting graphics. So, this is it. We'll just go into questions now. So get your questions into the chat. I'm going to see actually how many people we got here tonight. But yeah, get your questions in. We've got 15 people, so it's a smaller gathering today, but that's okay. I don't mind small. Size is not everything. So yeah, if you got questions about songwriting, recording, mixing, mastering, any phase of music production, also what I do as the other part of my job, which is session work, if you've got any questions about how to get into that, or what's involved in that, then get those in as well. It would be really cool to take your questions. We are only halfway through the show, guys, so I would really like it if we could get quite a lot of questions in here. Dwight L is here, which is very cool. Good to see you, Dwight. I think I missed your name when I was going through the list earlier. So I appreciate that all of you guys are here tonight. Let me just take a quick tea break, and you guys can write in your questions. Jonny Guybers just walked in. Good to see you, Jonny. Welcome. Welcome to my crazy show. So I've just talked about my December 10th challenge and releasing a brand new song or EP or album on December 10th. And I've just talked about how I'm going to document the whole process in a series of videos, because I'm a lunatic. And like that, I'm crazy enough to invite people into my process. And some of my process, as I've said, is a little bit unusual. But I'm going to take you on it anyway, and it should be interesting. you guys hopefully will find it very interesting, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. So, yeah, good to see you guys. But so far, I don't see any questions forthcoming. So you guys must be pretty cool, and you don't have anything that you would like me to address. So I have to think of something. Other than the December 10th challenge. But I thought kind of talking about that would generate a whole bunch of questions. How do I begin a project, says Jonny. Where do I start? Where do I start? That's a great question, actually, Jonny. Where do I start? How do I start a song? It usually starts off with sitting at the piano, sometimes at a guitar as well, maybe, and just coming up with some chord changes, just noodling around with some chords until something really grabs my attention. I will maybe discard quite a few things before I hit upon something that's that's grabbed my attention. And then from a set of chord changes will come a whole kind of arrangement. So I'll have the chord changes for a chorus, and then fairly quickly I'll start to work on a verse. And then once I have the verse and the chorus, then the next thing really is to work out a set of chord changes that will lead into, like a guitar solo section or a saxophone solo section or something like that. I like to have a solo section in most of my songs, to be honest, just to break up the song. And for me, anyway, solo sections don't tend to be over already existing chord changes. So a lot of people, they tend to write they'll maybe use like the first 8 bars of the verse or the last 8 bars of the verse as a solo section going into another chorus. Well, I tend to do something a little bit different, which is I tend to come up with a whole new section of music altogether. So it's kind of different. It might even be in a different key to the rest of the song. I've done that. Sometimes it's to accommodate the particular soloist. So like if it's a guitar soloist and the song in general is in A flat, then I'll have like a little 4 to 8 bar passage that kind of changes key. It gradually modulates, or it might go through 2 or 3 little passing key centers before it arrives at the key that the guitarist is happy to solo in. And I'll maybe make use of a particular piece of melody from the chorus, which I'll just repeat and transpose by way of kind of building up tension and building up tension to release into the guitar solo. Then the guitar solo will go over these new set of chord changes. And then, of course, I've got to work out a way to get back to the key of the chorus. So I'll have a little 4-bar set of chord changes at the end of the solo that will lead me back into the key for the chorus. So, and then once I've got those kind of ideas worked out, then it's about instrumentation. Okay, because by this time I've already arrived at a vibe. Is this a fast song? Is this a slow song? Is this funky? Is this a ballad? Those kind of questions have already been answered by the way I'm playing the set of chord changes on the piano. Although sometimes it might change. I might start with this particular set of chord changes, having it as a ballad, and then it ends up being much funkier instead. But it's the same chord changes. And then from there, having fleshed out the arrangement, then the song will start to talk to me. I know that sounds very weird, but it's true. What I do at that point is, once I'm happy with the general kind of fleshed out arrangement of the song, kind of like rhythm section, and maybe a half sketched out melody, which I would just put on any sort of lead instrument sound. It doesn't really matter to me, because that'll be replaced by the vocal eventually. Then what I do is I'll make it into an MP3 and I'll put it on my phone, and I will just listen to it a lot, maybe 20, 30 times over the course of, 2, maybe 3 days, maybe more, maybe 40 or 50 times over the course of 2 or 3 days. And by listening that many times, the song starts to talk to me about, kind of a scenario, a scene, or, some kind of visual thing in my mind will start to develop. And it might well be a little bit like, it might well be a little bit cinematic. And from there, characters will start to develop, and a storyline will start to develop. And then that leads me into lyric writing at that point. And I'm still listening to the music at this point, and I'm working out my lyric, and I'm trying to tell this story and confine it into the space that is this song and within the vibe of this song. By which time I'm almost at a point where I've got a melody that is singable. Quite often I start off with a melody line that's maybe not particularly singable because it might be too complex. And so I start to strip it down a little bit. I start to strip bits of the melody away until I've got it down to its bare essentials that is not only going to be singable, but is going to be something that the listener can really hook themselves into. It's a piece of melody that they can start to sing along with me with. And then once I've got that kind of melodic idea, and I've got the lyrics kind of fleshed out a little bit, and the storyline is pretty much set in stone, the characters are set in stone, then even if I haven't got the lyrics finished, then I start getting into recording vocals. And if necessary, I'll improvise the lyrics because I have the storyline and the characters already set in stone in my head. So it's then a matter of kind of like refining the lyric ideas until, sometimes even they're not set in stone until I hit record, and then I sing, and then out it comes. And so that's kind of like my process in a nutshell for how I start a project. And then once I've got the bare basics of a lead vocal down, and I've got the rhythm section sketched out, then the next challenge is kind of what other elements I'm going to need to bring in. So kind of like what's going to play counter melody. Am I going to have horns in this? Am I going to have strings? Other things that will fill out the texture and provide some interludes, some interest, other than just the vocal melody. So that's kind of how I do it. Bobby Booth says, just downloaded a song from Mixing Secrets. It's a jazz song, but it's a Christmas song called Jingle Bells. Jingle Bells is a great song. And I have played Jingle Bells a lot with my band, which of course as I've told you guys before, I don't have my band anymore. However, we are reuniting for this Christmas at my church, which is going to be very cool. It will probably be the one and only gig we do. It's going to be great. So I have new arrangements of things like Jingle Bells, Silent Night, and Oh Holy Night, which is a beautiful song. And I've got a few others up my sleeve as well. I've got a hilarious 7/8 funk version of Oh Christmas Tree that's there. So yeah, go ahead and mix that song. That sounds like it would be fun, Bobby. Diego says, have you used Finale? I have used Finale. I don't like it, but I have used it. I used Sibelius for... I know Sibelius is a different product than Finale. I have used both. I used Sibelius for years for writing choral parts for choirs and, orchestral stuff and brass band arrangements and big band arrangements. I used Sibelius for years. And then about 2 years ago, I dropped Sibelius and switched to Notion, which is made by Presonus. Because I was very much attracted to the idea of Notion and its interoperability with Studio One. And I thought, wow, this is great. This would be just fantastic. It would just make writing big band arrangements, writing horn charts for my songs just a breeze. And it actually really does. And the interoperability since it was first launched with Studio One 3.2, I think it was, and now here we are, Studio One 4.1.1. That interoperability has come a long way from what it was. It's very, very cool now. So, and it's not to say it wasn't cool to start with, but now it's extremely cool. And I think it's just something that's just going to get better and better and better. I think the integration between the two is going to become much more symbiotic over time. I would like to think that that's what's going to happen because, Cubase has had software writing integrated into it for decades. Not that it's any good, because it isn't. Score writing in Cubase has never been any good. But the fact that it's there natively within the same software is brilliant. And it would be really great if that kind of close intimacy between Studio One and Notion got like that. At least a little bit like that. That would be cool. So, yes, I have used Finale. Heel Flip is here. Good to see you. He says, I have lots of recordings, but nothing mastered. I haven't got into... Are there videos on mastering you guys have done in Studio One? I've done... Jonny and I did something a few years ago, actually, on mastering in Studio One. And I have kind of touched upon it. It's not something I've actually done a dedicated video for, so you have given me a great idea. Thank you. I will add that to the list of videos I will do. Jonny has I think he's done one on his own as well. But yes, I would definitely like to do one on mastering, especially as we've got all the new options in the project page in Studio One, like the EBU 128 standard for loudness and all of that, and we've got the K system and all of that, and we've got various integrated loudness measuring stuff in the project page as well. So I'd love to go into all of that and how to get the best out of all of that. So maybe I will do either a video on mastering, or I'll do a little mini series on mastering. That's a great idea. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yes, Jonny says, yeah, we did do a couple. We did do one together, which was hilarious fun. Let's see. Jonny is answering. Rainy says, part of the reason is some of the so-called professional producers get paid to advertise expensive mics and never give credit to low-cost options. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. This mic that I've got here is the Rode NT1A. Rode are an Australian-based company. And this is a superb mic. It's really, really good. Now, there are other really, really good low-cost options as well. Presonus make an M7 mic, which comes bundled, or at least used to, I don't know whether it still does, come bundled with their recording bundle, which they had bundled with one of their audio boxes. I don't know if that still happens. I hope it does, because I think that's a great idea. Lewitt make a great mic. And my good friend Warren Hewitt over at Produce Like a Pro talks about Lewitt mics a lot, and they are really good. And they have a good low-cost mic as well, which is fantastic. Definitely recommend that. Rode also do a pair of stereo mics called NT5s, which are great if you want to record something like acoustic guitar in an XY pattern in stereo. My dad has a pair of those, and that's how we record his acoustic guitar for his EP. And they sound epic. They sound really, really good. So they're worth having an investigation into. Max1651 says, here's a question. How do you decide if you're going to record a real horn instrument or use a sampled horn part? Pros and cons. Great question. Great question, because there are some brilliant sample libraries for horn sections out there. There's the Chris Hine horns, which I think is probably by far and away the best horn section sample library in the world right now, and is reasonably priced as well. There's the session horns that Native Instruments make as well, which is very good. Presonus do something called vintage brass, which is great if you're kind of into sort of vintage brass band kind of sounds. That's well worth having. And actually the horn section sounds that are native to the Presence XT are really good. Oh, that's my phone. Somebody's messaging me. I don't know if you heard it go, message. Yeah, I forgot to put my phone on silent before the show starts, so I think I'll do that right now. Oh, okay. That was, okay. I know what that was. Cool. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So sample libraries are really good. Now, here's the thing with sample libraries and how to get the best out of them. You have to treat them as if they are real musicians. So that means you have to use the trumpets sound only in its written range. Okay? If you're writing kind of like pop and funk and jazz kind of horn stuff, then obviously you're going to be thinking about the extended range, you know, the extended jazz range. A lot of good trumpet players will be able to play good high note stuff. So you'd want to stick to that written range. That's point number one for each instrument. Point number two, write something that is playable. Even if you are not using real musicians, you're using the sample library, write something that sounds authentic and playable by a real person. That means allow space for breath. Think about articulation. There are different ways for a reed and a brass instrument to be performed. You know, I've talked with my good friend Mike Neighbor about this a little bit as well. So I may as well kind of share the same kind of things here. Brass and reed players. So I'm talking trumpets, trombones, and saxophones, clarinets, and all of that. They do something called, when they blow their instrument, they don't just go into the instrument. They use their tongue to start and end the notes. Okay? And depending upon the passage that you're asking them to play, they would either do something called single tonguing, which is basically going ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, or they'd do something called double tonguing, which would be taka-taka-taka-taka-taka-ta, or if you are a big fan of John Williams and the Star Wars films or the Indiana Jones films, listen to how John Williams writes for the brass. And listen to the number of times you hear figures like this. Those kind of triplet figures, you cannot do those with a double tonguing. You just can't. So there's a technique called triple tonguing, which is what I just demonstrated just there. So think about those kind of things, and you'll end up with something that sounds authentic. Okay? So don't go outside of the written range of the instruments. And think about how those instruments are played, and allow space for breath, essentially. So those are the important things, regardless of what sample library you use, whether it's Presence XT, Chris Hine horns, session horns, whatever it might be, East-West horns. I have a sample library that's really, really old. It's called Pop and Funk Brass, and it's kind of like a stripped-down version of a sample library made by the Phoenix Horns and the Memphis Horns, which were kind of like the primary two horn sections for the Motown record label. And they're really, really good. They are really, really good. Now, the thing you have to do, because they're that good, is you have to really be careful about being authentic. Because otherwise, a listener will spot fakery a mile off. Even if they don't know what a real horn section should sound like, they'll spot fakery. They'll know, hey, that trumpet player couldn't possibly hold that note for 16 bars. Or play that line that doesn't stop for 16 bars. Unless they can circular breathe. But most people don't circular breathe. Some do. I know trumpet players that circular breathe. I know sax players that circular breathe. But most people don't. Most people can only, you know, breathe one way. They can't kind of like breathe in and out at the same time, simultaneously, which is what circular breathing is. So yeah, so those are the things to think about with horns. That's a great question, though. Let's see. Johnny's talking about the Atom, which is cool. Mike says, this advice helped me tremendously on my last song. I'm a drummer, not a trombone player or a flute player. That's cool. Bobby Booth says, I mixed a song the other day and put it on loudness penalty, which came out with YouTube as flat, Spotify as negative 0.7, Tidal as flat, Pandora negative 0.2, and iTunes flat, but they were all red. That's okay. That's fine. Red basically means that the particular services that you've listed there will turn your music down by that much in dBs, okay? So if you're being turned down by less than 1 dB, that's good. That's okay. It means that your music is hardly going to be turned down at all. So, I mean, ideally you want flat, which is what you have for YouTube and Tidal and iTunes. That's great. That, to me, that means that your master is in a good place where those services are not going to touch it. They're not going to adjust your they're not going to compress it, which means your dynamic range is not going to be harmed in any way, shape, or form. But even the ones where you have listed that they're turning you down, they're only turning you down by a tiny bit. Pandora turning you down by 0.2 dB. What? That's hardly anything. So if when you run your music through something like loudness penalty, if you don't know what it is, it's a fantastic creation by my good friend Ian Shepherd, great mastering engineer. And basically you put your music, you upload your music onto this thing. It doesn't store your music at all, so you don't have to worry about, you know, a server having your music on it. It doesn't do that. All it does is you upload it, and all it does is analyze it. And and what it comes out with is by how much these particular streaming music platforms would adjust the volume of your music. So in the case that Bobby has listed here, most of them are not going to do a thing. And the only ones that are turning them down are Spotify by 0.7 and Pandora by 0.2. So that is good. That means they're hardly being turned down at all. Nobody's going to notice it. Now, if you find that you have red scores that are -3 or -4 or more, then that basically means those platforms are turning your music down by that much through compression or through limiting specifically. But if you have green, which is where you have a plus number, and they're turning you up, that's also okay. So either flat or just being turned down a hair or being turned up is good. If they're turning you down by more than 1 dB, I would suggest you go back and adjust your master until you get something that's either flat or just a hair down or a hair up, is what I would suggest. But to me, looking at those numbers, you are hitting the target. You are right on the money. Okay, so I hope that helps. I'm going to scroll up and see. Yeah, I kind of didn't really finish answering your question, Mac, did I? Because I kind of didn't talk about pros and cons. I talked about how to write for virtual instruments, but I didn't really talk about the pros of hiring real musicians. If you have the budget for it, hire real musicians. And actually, before you even hire a real horn section, hire an arranger who can arrange the horn, who can write your charts for those musicians. Get him or her on board to write your horn charts so that you've got something that your horn players will be able to read on site on the day and play your chart and get good recordings first time. That way, you're not wasting time, you're not wasting money, you're getting a good horn chart, and you're getting good performances by good musicians. So if you've got the budget for it, do it. Absolutely do it. But if you don't, use a sample library. It's not a bad thing, using a sample library. You just need to kind of think about, imagine your sample library is your horn section. Only this time, you are the horn arranger. So you're going to have that hat on to start with to write a good horn chart that's then playable by real instruments and sounds authentic, as I've said. So I hope that helps. And Bobby says that it helps him, which is cool. We have about 5 minutes left, folks, so I think I could probably take maybe a question more, and then we will call it a night. But those were some really, really great questions, and I do appreciate that there is a delay on YouTube with the chat, so it took a little bit of time for your questions to filter through, but thank you very much for all the questions that we've had so far. Let's see, how are we doing? 17 people here, which is great. Thank you ever so much, every single one of you, for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys coming and listening to me talk and asking me questions. So here's the thing that I'm going to finish up the show with. If you would like a particular topic to be covered in my talking point at the start of the show, send me an email to johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk and have talking point as the subject of your email, and then pop in there kind of details about what it is you would like to see addressed. And then what I'd really like is if a lot of you bring talking points up and email them to me, and then over the course of the next several weeks, I can just address them one at a time. I'll just start at the top and work my way through the list, and then hopefully everybody's talking point will get addressed. That'd be really cool. And so then, to me, that makes this show much more about you guys, which is what I want. I want my Sunday Night Live show to be entirely about you guys, and entirely about the things that you want me to bring to you that are going to help you, that are going to help you get better at your craft, they're going to help you develop and grow, and hopefully the stuff that I bring and the things that I talk about are going to help you grow and develop and stretch, and hopefully they're going to challenge you to maybe step out a little outside of your comfort zone, so that you actually become a much more well-rounded, better musician, a better composer, a better arranger, a better songwriter, a better producer, a better mix engineer. Those are the kind of things that I want to really help you with. So if you guys could provide me with talking points, things that you want addressed that I can talk about or demonstrate in Studio One, please send me an email, and then hopefully each successive week from here on out, I've got a talking point that is something that you guys want to see addressed. And then these shows become much more about what you want and what you want to talk about, rather than what I want to talk about. Whoops, banging the mic. So I think that would be much better all round if we did that. So if you guys are up for that, then please do drop me an email, or if you don't want to drop me an email, then reach out to me on Facebook. You can drop me a private message there, and it will get included in the talking points going forward as well. Let's see. Thumbs up from Low Ends. Heel Flips donated $5. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You guys have been very generous tonight. Thanks, Johnny, for reminding me there, because I had missed it. Raina is out of the chat now because it's very late there. It's coming up on 1 a.m. here, so it's coming up on 2 o'clock in the morning for him. So, Raina, I appreciate you very much, and thank you for being on the show, because I know it is very late for you, and I appreciate that very much. So, thanks a lot, buddy. And we've got about 3 minutes left, so who is going to be the one with the final question of the night? let's see who that's going to be. Yeah, don't forget talking points. Send them to me, and you will get featured. Your talking point will get featured in the next show, or a show down the line. Because I will, if I have a nice long list, then I'll go through them methodically. Or if I see that there's a theme developing, I'll kind of group them into little themes. Like maybe we'll have like 2 or 3 weeks on a particular subject, a particular aspect, because several of you have come up with a similar kind of related idea, in which case I'll do several weeks where we talk about that particular thing. So I can do those kind of things. That'd be cool. Let's see. Johnny says, great show, man. Hit the like button, please. Yes, please do hit that like button and share this show around to all your friends, your family, your friends and family's tennis partners, your friends and family's tennis partners, pet, snakes, whatever. Yeah, just feel free to share this around and let people know about the show. I'd appreciate that. Because the more people we have in the show, the merrier, and the better it will be. More questions will get asked, and more things will get addressed. So that would be very, very cool. And Johnny is saying like. Absolutely, please do. It would help me out tremendously if you could do that. And if you are not already subscribed, please go and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell next to it, and that way you'll get notifications about all of the videos that I've talked about that I'm going to be doing over the course of the next few weeks. And if you are not on my email list, why not? Link is in the description below. Go and click that link and fill out your details there. It's just your name and your email address, and you will get my 5-part compression series, which you can watch to your heart's content. And you'll also get a link to my song Chanel and the stems, and you can use those. You can mix that song and you can use it in your portfolio to attract clients if you'd like to do that. Absolutely happy for you to do that. Just don't forget to say, hey, this is Chanel by Jonny Lipsham, and link back to link back to Jonny Lipsham Studios. That would be great if you could do that. So there we go. It is just flipped over to 1 a.m. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. I really appreciate it. And the next time you see me on YouTube will be this week on a video, but in terms of live, the next time you see me will be over on the HST live streams channel, where I will be doing yet another fantastic and hilarious episode of Songwriting Simplified with my very good friend Jonny Gibe. It's going to be very, very cool. And as I say, I'm going to be talking with Jonny, and we're going to have a whole bunch of Christmas stuff for the month of December, I'm sure. So there you go, Jonny. Heard it here first. All right, folks. Thanks very much for coming out, and I will see you, as I say, in the next video, or on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time over on HST live streams. And I will see you then. Bye for now. Good night.